Guys, welcome to our channel Elimika Mtandaoni. My name is Agustino Mogosi. I'm going to explain some concepts regarding a very important topic called the research. We will have a series of videos explaining this important concept of research. We'll start by introducing what research is, and we'll go and discuss the steps in the process of doing research, and in the end we'll talk about how we can write several reports to represent the findings that we have obtained from doing research. So let us start with the introduction, saying what is research. It says here that research is a scientific and systematic search for relevant information on a specific topic. Think of this. You have a question that need answer. You have a question that need answer, and you do not know what's the answer for that question. Then if you follow some scientific procedures, or if you follow some systematic procedures to search for answers for such questions that you have in your mind, then we say you are doing research. It's not the matter of you have a question, then you go to a library and you do a kind of reading and you come up and say you have done research. The process of finding answers, should be systematic. That means there are some important steps that you should follow, and those steps are scientific in nature. So you follow those steps to reach to the point where you get your answers. Kwa hiyo unapozungumzia tafiti, actually you have to talk about it. You have to go through some systematic and scientific processes to find answers for that. So other books say that research is the process of steps used to collect and analyze data to increase understanding of a topic or an issue. So you can have a question that you look for answers again, but sometimes you need to increase your understanding of a certain topic. So you do a kind of search, systematic search or scientific search, so that you can get more knowledge regarding certain topics. So in general, we can say research is in a kind of three steps. It's a kind of three steps. You have a question, you pose a question, then you go and look for data that will help you to answer that question. After you have gathered the data, then you present your answer to the question. So it's a kind of such three important steps. So speaking of research, it should first be scientific and systematic. So you cannot just go and do the search of information and bring or present them to people saying that you have done research. No. Research should be systematic. It means that there are some steps, very important steps that you should follow so that you can reach the conclusion that these are the answers for the question that you have in mind. Think of this, that there are some people back then in the history, they thought they had a question, what makes a plant grow? What makes a plant grow? So they did a kind of systematic search of answers, and then they came to the point that for a plant to grow, it needs light. For a plant to grow, it needs water. For a plant to grow, it needs soil, and things like that. So the answers that they got it because they did a systematic search. But at first they had a question, and from a question they went and collected data so that they can get answers to such questions, and in the end they presented their answers in front. So that is the meaning of the term research. But what are the reasons? What are the important reasons that we should do research? There are three important reasons as to why we should do or people do research. The first important reason is research adds to knowledge. Research adds to knowledge means that researchers undertake research so that they can contribute to an existing information or an issue. So they contribute knowledge to a certain topic. For example, someone did a certain research and found out certain results. So some other researcher can go and do another research so that they can contribute to the existing knowledge, to extend from the previous researchers what they have done. So through research, what we do, we develop results that these results help to answer certain questions, and we accumulate these results, and then we gain into we gain a deeper understanding of certain problems. So there can be problems, there can be questions, and then what we do, we collect data, we follow certain procedures so that we can collect data. Such data can be used to provide answers to the questions or to the problems that exist. So as they present the results, then those results they are taken as additional to the knowledge that existed. So the first reason is research adds knowledge to the society. Another reason, research improves practice. Research improves practice. Just think of this. You are in a particular institution. You are in a certain institution, let's say a bank institution, and there is a way that you do your things, and but you don't do it effectively or you don't do it efficiently. So you decide to do research so that you can find some better ways to do or to do to practice your jobs. So research is important because it suggests some improvements for a practice. Think of this, for example, you are in a company that you provide certain services, but your clients keep complaining that there is this problem, there is this problem. Then you decide to do research. After you do research, you come up with answers. With these clients, they are complaining because of 1, 2, 3. So it is this research that has offered new ideas that you can use those ideas to improve the ways of doing your jobs. Then you come up with okay, in order to solve this problem, then we should change our ways to 1, 2, 3. So that is how research contributes, or research is important to the society. Another one is research informs policy debates. There are people that are called the policymakers in governments, etc. They need a kind of information that will help them to come up with some regulations, to come up with some policies. So research provides information to these policymakers when they research and debate about certain topics. Then it is the results from the research that help them to come up with the certain policies, and in the end, those policies help to improve certain activities in the country or in an organization or in whatever institution. So after you have understood why we should do research, as we have said, we have three main important reasons that research adds to knowledge, research improves practice, and research informs policy debates. Now let us see the steps that we should follow as we are doing research, steps in the process of research. But before going to the steps in the process of research, there are some problems with research. Not every research is considered to be not every search is considered to be researchable. Not every problem or not every question is considered to be researchable. That means not each and every question you can say can result into us finding answers. It is worth to be it is worth for it to be researched. But even if it is researched, the results of such research, some of the results of such research are questionable. It's not possible for every results of research to be true results. It depends. Despite the importance of research, we also need to evaluate the results of such research. Speaking of evaluation of results of such research, we can evaluate its contributions. Sometimes these results show a kind of findings that are contradictory, or findings that are not clear, findings that are vague. So if you find that we have done a research and the results that we get are not clear, they are contradicting, then that's a problem. We cannot say that are true results of a research. But there is an issue of questionable data. There is an issue of questionable data. So not every result, as we have said, not every results that we get from research are considered to be true results. It depends. You may have this situation, for example, an author may not have gathered information from people who are able to understand and address the problem. For example, you want to see problems faced by IT personnel in a certain organization, but instead of going to IT people and ask questions about IT issues, you go to an agriculturalist, or you go to a doctor and ask questions that regard IT. The truth is, you will get answers that are not that will not address the problem at hand. If you want questions about IT issues, then you need to ask the IT guys. For example, you have questions about students, but you go and ask instructors. So that means your data are questionable. But there is this other problem, that the number of participants may also be low, which can cause problems in drawing appropriate statistical conclusions. You may want to find answers about the acceptability of a certain issue. Then you decide to take 3 people and ask questions, and in the end you say one person among the 3 accepted, and 2 did not accept. So it's about 70% of people did not accept, and you draw conclusion that that is your result. That is a problem. That's a problem. It's not true, because it is not an appropriate statistical conclusion. In order to have appropriate statistical conclusions, then you need to have reasonable number of participants in your study. The people that you will get information from them need to be of a good number. Sometimes the type of data collection methods that we use may bring some questions. For example, you have a survey that you use in your study, and you put some questions that are ambiguous and vague, that even the person that is asked such questions doesn't understand what questions, what do those questions mean. So if you have ambiguous questions or vague questions, then we doubt the results of such research. So that's another problem with the data that are collected. So another situation is a researcher may have chosen an inappropriate statistic for analyzing the data. As we know that we said that research is systematic process. As it is a systematic process, it reaches a point that you need to analyze the data so that you can make sense out of the data that you have collected. But not every statistical technique that is available out there can be used for every research. There are some statistical techniques that will suit certain data types. So you have to use appropriate statistical techniques so that you can analyze data and get real results of data. So those are the problems with the research. Now let us see what are the steps in the process of research. What are the steps? In fact, when researchers conduct a study, what they do, they proceed through a distinct set of steps. You need to follow certain steps. This process of researching, it consists of a number of steps. The very first step that is there is identification of a research problem. We start by identification of a research problem. Then it is followed by literature review, or review of the literature. Then it is followed by specifying a purpose for the research, and it is followed by design the research. Then we collect the data, then we analyze data, and we interpret and report. So those are the steps, as we have said. Speaking of identification of a research problem, it consists of sub steps. For example, when you say we are identifying a research problem, the first thing that we do is you specify a certain issue to study. There is a problem, you have to specify that problem. And speaking of a problem is, you have two situations. You have the current situation, and you have the desired situation. You say that if there is a difference between the current situation and the desired situation, then it creates a problem. For example, not having water somewhere in a class is not a problem. As I've said, not having water is not a problem, but the problem comes when people become thirsty. They need water. No, that is a desired situation, so it's a problem. So while doing a research, you have to have a problem. And speaking of a problem, it's a question at hand. We have a question, we say we need answers to that. So if we have a question and we need answers to that, then we specifying that is the first step. As we say, we identifying a research problem. After we have identified that problem or that question at hand, then we develop what we call justification for studying it. Not every question needs answers. Not every question need answers. There are some questions that are just there, they don't need answers. So you have to build a justification as to why you want to find answers for a certain question. So that is what we say, you develop a justification for studying. After you have developed the justification for studying, then you suggest the importance of studying for certain audiences that will read the report, because not every results of a research are needed for each and every one. There are some specific type of people that will read your report, that will read your findings. So you suggest your importance as to why this kind of issue needs to be addressed. So the first step of identifying a research problem consists of three important steps. One is specifying an issue to study. 2, you develop a justification for studying. And 3, you suggest the importance of that study to your audience. That is the first step in the process of research. As I'm saying this is just the first video I'm explaining about research. In the next coming videos, I will be explaining these steps each one after another. So let's move to another step, that is review the literature. Speaking of review the literature, it also has some steps. One, when you say literature review, it means that you locate summaries, you locate books, you locate journals or some indexed publications on a certain topic. You have a certain topic that you research. Speaking of a topic, you had a problem. That problem was built from a certain topic. So what you do is you locate the summaries regarding that topic, or books or journals or publications. Then you choose among those books or among those journals and those publications. Then you choose which one among those can be included in your review. Then after that, you summarize that literature in a written report. So you read about the topic. Then you have several books or several summaries or several journals or publications. Then among those many books regarding a certain topic, you narrow them, you take those that you can use to your study. Then from there, you read and summarize those literatures in a written report. That is the second step that we call a literature review. But after literature review, we have another step, that is specification of the purpose of the research. Specification of the purpose of the research. Then what does this mean? You have to specify the purpose, the intent. Why do you want to do a research? What is your aim? What is your objective? So specifying the purpose of the research means you identify the objective of your research. But it doesn't end there. you have to narrow that objective into small other objectives that we call them specific objectives. Then you narrow them again into a number of questions or hypotheses. We call those questions research questions. And from you either have the research questions or you have hypothesis. Hypothesis, a kind of predictions or a kind of answers that you predict will be given or will be the answers for the questions that you have. Then after that, another step that follows is the design of your research. Design of your research, this means that it depends what you do. It depends on what approach of the research that you go. You can have research that includes quantitative analysis, and you have another research that has a qualitative approach, a kind of qualitative approach. So if you are doing a quantitative study, then there are a number of some designs that you can use. You can do research as either an experiment, or you can do research as a correlation study, or you can do research as a survey, or you can have a qualitative kind of research that you can do research using grounded theory, you can do research using ethnography, or you can do research using a narration. Or sometimes you can do research as a combination of the two. And the methods that you can use, let's say, mixed methods, or what we call action research. But in the process of design, there is where you will decide what kind of approach you use. You will decide on the area of study, you will decide on the types of data that you will collect, the methods of collecting data, the sampling techniques, the sampling methods that you use to come up with the participants that you need. So that is what it means by research design. After doing research design, what is next is you collect data. Collecting data involves a number of stages. As I've said again, you have to select the individuals that you will use for study. You have to say, I will deal, let's say, with the students, or students, undergraduate students, or secondary school students, or primary school students, or I will deal with the employees, the private sector employees, or the public sector employees, or whatever. So you select the individuals that you will use as the source of information to your study. After you have selected individuals, then you obtain permission to ask them questions. You just don't go to each and every person and ask questions. You won't get answers. So you have to obtain permission. Permission to ask them questions, or permission to do your research, let's say in a certain organization or whatever. Then from there, you gather your information. Then you move to the second step of research, to the other step of research, that is we call analyzing data. Speaking of analyzing data means that you have collected the data, then you break down the data so that you can get some sense out of the data. Then after that, you represent such data that you have broken down into some information. For example, you can have a lot of data, then you aggregate them. You find, let's say, summaries of them, or you find average, or you find mean, median, some things like that. The process of analyzing data involves some statistical or logical techniques. These statistical and logical techniques that we use, they help in making sense out of the data that we have collected. After we have done analysis, we represent the data. Then data can be represented in form of figures, or in form of tables, or a kind of explanation. We call detailed explanation. So you can have some graphs to represent data. For example, you have gathered information about males and females liking certain thing. You will get that a number of males and a number of females, and you represent them in a graph to get a kind of visualization of their response. The last step is interpret and report. interpret and report. When we say interpret, we mean that you explain the data. What does that mean? If you have represented data in form of graph, or you have represented data in form of tables, then you have to explain what such data mean. Then that is what we call interpretation. Then you decide on audiences. You decide which audiences, what kind of data should be presented to which audiences. Then in the reporting, you structure the report and write the report sensitively. But the last step, which is very important, after you have done your research using all these steps that you have mentioned, in the end you have to do what we call evaluation of your research. When we say evaluation, what it means is you assess the quality of your study, but you use certain standards, for advanced by certain individuals in a certain sector. You measure or you assess whether certain standards have been followed, so that not to nullify such results, to make those results good results. So those are the steps in the process of research. So this is the first video in this topic that we call research. Make sure that you subscribe, share this video to other people, let them know that there is a series of videos that are coming, talking or explaining about research. So in the next videos, we will start discussing these steps in details. We'll start with the identification of a problem. Thank you very much for following us. My name is Agustino Mogosi, and don't forget to subscribe. Ciao.